Long before the arrival of Columbus, before Coronado set his eyes on the golden cities, and before the European cartographers drew wild rivers haphazardly that seemed to still exist today, there was a language, a sacred tongue spoken by prophets, priests, and kings that may have crossed oceans, buried itself in the mountains of the Southwest, and echoed in the chants of the tribes. Could the ancient Hebrew language still live in the words of the Native Americans? And if so, who really walked these lands first? Welcome back to In Search of Tontonteac. The story begins with the lost tribes of Israel, scattered across the earth after the Assyrian conquest. The Bible says they disappeared, but native traditions tell a different story. Stories of great migrations, star-guided journeys, and chosen people who crossed vast waters to a new promised land. From the Cherokee word for creator, Yohiwa, to the Hopi word Abba for father, the similarities between native and Hebrew tongues are more than curious. The Choctaw spoke of the Shalambish, a spirit breath. The Hebrews spoke of Ruach. The Algonquin called the sky spirit Manitou, remarkably close to the Hebrew Manitou, meaning God is with us. The Zuni word for days, Yoma, echoes the Hebrew Yom. And Navajo ceremonies speak of Kodesh, a word for holy, just like the Hebrew Kadosh. Are we just hearing echoes of coincidence, or whispers of ancient contact? James Adair, a Scotsman who lived among southeastern tribes, swore that the natives kept Hebrew customs, from bloodline laws to purification rituals, to even cities of refuge for accidental crimes, just like ancient Israel. Across the Southwest, symbols carved into stone look strikingly like Paleo-Hebrew, petroglyphs showing menorah-like trees, spirals resembling the Tree of Life, and strange star maps, all carved centuries before Columbus. The fringes worn by certain tribes mirror the tzitzit, commanded in Numbers 15, threads tied with meaning, worn at the corners of garments as a reminder of divine laws. Could the very garments of ancient Israel be hidden in the regalia of America's First Nations? And it wasn't just language or clothes. Massive earthworks, serpent-shaped mounds aligned with the solstices, carefully mapped to the heavens, hint at an ancient priesthood. Mound cities like Cahokia and Etowah suggest a lost culture skilled in sacred geometry and connected to traditions far older than what mainstream history admits. In 1823, a minister named Ethan Smith published View of the Hebrews, proposing that Native Americans were Israelites. Decades later, Joseph Smith would echo the same idea, giving rise to a movement that saw the American land as a stage for ancient prophecy. Spanish priests from the 1500s to the 1700s noted the familiarity in customs, even claiming to hear biblical names among the Pueblo people, names like Isaiah and David woven into native tongues. So if the tribes carried fragments of a forgotten Israel, where are the cities they built? Where are the temples, the strongholds, the hidden records? The tribe of Manasseh, B'nai Menashe, is one of the 10 lost tribes. Some Native American traditions, especially southwestern tribes like the Hopi, Zuni, and Navajo, have oral histories that mention migration from across the sea, often tied to a promised land or a great destruction, flood, fire, or upheaval. Some researchers draw parallels between Zuni Hopi ritual practices and ancient Israelite practices, including kosher-style dietary laws, use of prayer shawls, purification rituals, sacred fire ceremonies. However, on the flip side, did the Spanish, Jesuits, or the Franciscans teaching push these groups of these customs and forcing these customs on these people? Another interesting piece of the puzzle is the LDS connection. The Book of Mormon states that some Native Americans are descendants of Israelites, particularly the tribes of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh. This belief, while controversial in mainstream history, was influential in early Mormon missionary efforts to Native tribes. What I find the most curious about the Mormon religion, which is completely different than the Catholic Church, is how did it get approval from the Church and how was it started financially? From what I am to understand, is that the LDS carved out their own lane, not getting acceptance from the Church, being persecuted against, being ran out of New York, Ohio, Missouri, and Illinois, and they used a method of a non-profit religious services, an a-for-profit business concept. So next time for In Search of Tontonteac, we will be looking at the Mormons' exodus into Mexican territory.